am a full-time artist and science communicator, and I'm the art director of the North Cascade Glacier Climate Project. I am currently based in Washington. I'm in my little studio space right now in Bellingham, and today I'll be kind of talking about both the work that I do with this project and kind of how I take it further and try to communicate it through my art, try to communicate the research that we do. So this project is a father and daughter team, so I'm gonna kick it over to my dad now to introduce himself.
Yeah, so I'm Mauri Pelto. I'm a glaciologist. I've worked at Nichols College in Massachusetts for 36 years and still really enjoy getting out every year and working on glaciers and looking forward to sharing how this journey of glacier research has developed.
So this is a little bit more about us. Dad, I'll let you say a little bit more about you again for the slide.
Yeah, so if you think about the project started back in 1984. Why? Because there was kind of a need for people to observe what was going to happen with climate change and to begin it kind of at the really when climate change started to pick up speed. And so people were challenged to figure out what can you monitor. And I decided I could monitor North Cascade glaciers. And you can't just monitor one, you have to monitor them across the entire mountain range. So I thought I'll do that for 50 years. That seems like about the right amount of time to do it. So in 1984, I got started and been doing it ever since.
And I joined the project with my dad when I was 16 and in high school. Growing up, he started it before, about 10 years before I was born. And so growing up, I'd heard so much about the work and we'd get to see, photos of his research. But we were, on the East Coast in Massachusetts. So for me, it was still kind of a foreign world to be working on glaciers. But as I got older, my dad was always clear with my siblings and I that if we ever wanted to join them on his research, we could. And like I said, I did that for the first time at 16, and then I just never stopped coming. So this field season was my 17th consecutive year working out on the North Cascade glaciers. And it kind of evolved maybe roughly like 5-ish years ago into me being the art director and really kind of stepping up in the role of both helping with all the logistics of the project and leading on glaciers in the field, but most importantly, bringing in artists to work with us and creating my own art about the project, which we'll dig into a little bit more. And that goes along with it's not just us in the field. We couldn't do it without every year amazing field assistants that we have. We have folks that come out with us for the whole season and some folks that come out with us for part of the season. Scientists, artists, journalists, folks like that that really help share this work and make the science possible too. So that's kind of kicking off 42 years so far of art and science in the glaciers of the North Cascades. This is on Easton Glacier on Mount Baker, which is one of the big volcanoes in Washington State. It's the one like closest to the top, right near the border of Canada.
Yeah, and so the glaciers of the North Cascades are important because they provide water resources that, I mean, the landscape really relies upon the salmon. And then, of course, we've built hydropower plants. We have agriculture that needs their irrigation. So those glaciers are more than just a curiosity. And so what we started to do was set up a field program to monitor mass balance because that's like the most sensitive indicator for climate change. And so we began to do that and just have kept that record going each year.
And the photo on the left is one of our field teams from 2021 with Mount Baker behind us. And behind us is the Rainbow Glacier, which we monitor every year. And so it's fun. We always have this kind of tight-knit group that we're with for, about 3 weeks every year. And so that's what that's showing.
Obviously, glaciers are, people really think of them as something that's so powerful. And people always want to go to Alaska to see a glacier or to Iceland, wherever it is. They're just compelling, kind of like a beach is always changing, and so are glaciers. And that's one thing that is really important about them. And of course, unfortunately, now they're also a symbol of climate change because they live outside all the time. They can't come inside and turn on the air conditioning or put on the humidifier. And so they really reflect how climate change is happening. And so that's our goal is to get out there, live on the glaciers and share that environment and see how they're responding to these changes.
Just wanted to quickly share a map. This is showing Washington State, and the blue points are just showing kind of the spread of where we work each summer. That's the North Cascades. The Cascade Range extends on either side of it, though. And so those, again, those blue points are showing the different places we work in the field in Washington, kind of in that north west corner, just to orient you. My dad started the project, like we said, and one of the things that was really hard but really hooked me was the uniqueness of it being backpack science. We examine more glaciers than any other field program in North America, and to do that, we are entirely hiking in everything on our backs, our food, our clothes, for the days that we're out. And we're in wilderness areas, so that also means we can't use mechanized equipment. But right here is one of our approximately 5 camps that we have each field season. In the background, kind of coming out of the clouds, is the Lower Curtis Glacier on Mount Shuxen, one of the ones that we work on. And so it's really neat to kind of have a base camp that we can day hike into for days in a row to a glacier. And that's kind of how we make the project work. And so anyone we bring out, an artist, a journalist, a scientist, they're all living at this camp with us and having that adventure together.
Yeah, and you think about most science expeditions or science programs aren't based on backpacking in, but because it was a wilderness area, that was really the only way to do it. Uh, it would be hard to get a government permit, but also we like the idea of having it be, kind of leave no trace and just observe. People think you need to use expensive equipment to be able to do good science. But you think about all the things we can observe. In this case, it's glaciers. But I don't. It could be the Christmas bird survey in your neighborhood. If you do that Christmas bird survey every year, just simply counting birds that you see, that's really useful as a measure potentially of climate change. Or when a particular flower in your neighborhood blooms every year. So there's just so many things that can be observed, and as long as you make careful observations of them, they'll be really useful, even if it's a very simple observation.
In order to share this work more widely, we've really built up a really strong amount of press features to highlight our work from all different types, whether it's local press or more like national press. But science communication is a really top priority for us. So these are just screenshots of some of the features that we've had. Some are more focused on the science, some have been more focused on the art. But it's really been awesome because this allows so many different people to see our work, to learn about kind of what's happening to glaciers, why it matters, why it affects them, kind of to inspire them and what they can do, kind of around mitigating some of these big changes.
And you think about, I mean, we find that collaborations are just so crucial. And in this case, we're just, we're trying to communicate what we're observing, and we need, media to be able to spread that word. And it's really important to use stories. And we found it best to, work with the journalists to tell the story that they're really passionate about and they see in our work, and not try to say, here's the story we want you to tell it. And so it's good to let everybody comes with their own perspective, and let them and we support their perspective. You think about the conversation after the first year, Jill was in the field in 2009. She wanted to come out again in 2010. And it was right about that. I showed her a graph like this, and I told her, that this is like normal science data presentation. And if I'm explaining it to you, you will understand that it's showing the mass balance decline through time of glaciers. But if I ask you about it a week from now, you probably won't remember it. There was nothing compelling visually here to really cement that. And I began to recognize that we needed some way to do that. And so that's what I challenged you with. I said, I need to be able, we need to be able to communicate what we're seeing well. We need more than just an Excel graph.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for me as someone with a dual background of both art and science, I can understand kind of both perspectives. Like when I see a line like this, it is telling a story for me about a change over time. And mass balance is just like the budget of glaciers, like how much they gain versus lose each year. So it's just showing you, in this figure, over about 40 years, how much, they've lost of their mass. And so when I see that story, but in this particular example, it's especially because I get to go to these glaciers. And so there's so many memories and so many emotions tied in with seeing these changes firsthand, that not everyone gets to have. And so I took this line just to start, and this is that same graph line, but over a photograph of us from the field this past summer, and kind of strolling out ready for a day to work on take measurements on the ice. And so I just put this graph over the photos, kind of like that first step to kind of like remind people that this is not just a line. This is about like a real place that's changing and the stories associated with that. And then now this is that same graph line, but in my watercolor painting. And so we can see that line kind of going across the top surface of a mountain glacier. And so below the line is all of that ice and all of like the beautiful forms and colors it takes. And I have a set in this landscape inspired by the landscape of the North Cascades. It was fun for this piece because the data is about the glaciers in the North Cascades as a whole. I didn't want to just choose one glacier or one mountain to depict, so I kind of made up my own glacier and mountains around it, and kind of formed a landscape inspired by a bunch of photos I had from these places, but kind of something unique. And I really wanted to show the beauty and power of these types of places. And even though, the glaciers are retreating really fast, there's still so much ice here and there's still so much to protect. And there's so much value for so many different reasons to these types of landscapes. And so I hope that the like beauty and emotions of that can come forward. And so when I show a painting like this in person or when I have it on my website, I will always have a description. So if people do want to dig in more and say, oh, there's data here. This is what this piece is about, and showing that they can learn more about it. But I also hope that the visual can speak for itself for those who don't kind of read more details about it. And I'm just showing one more example of some art I've made inspired by our project and our work. And so this is zooming out and showing more of kind of like the literal landscape. At the bottom is the ocean. It's Bellingham Bay and the town of Bellingham where I live. And then you're looking back inland at the biggest, more white mountain is Mount Baker, the volcano. To the left is Mount Shuxen. So we work on glaciers on both of those mountains. And you'll see these blue lines kind of coming from the mountains in the paintings, and those are the rivers that I really made like pop so they were more clear. And so I'm tracing those rivers from the mountains down into the valleys and all the way flowing out into the ocean. And so this is the Nooksack River, which is one example of how glaciers and all of their snow and ice really feed watersheds. And so the data in this piece, rather than being a line graph, is a bar graph. And so all of those stacks are kind of coming up from going up and down from the river. And they're basically showing a story of how much water we get from the mountains, from their snow and ice, and how that is really needed in the dry, hot summer months in this region when there's not a lot of rain. We tend to get in this region all our rain like in the fall and winter. That's what I'm going through right now, versus in the summer, it's dry and you need all that water from the mountains. So this is a story I'm telling, really zooming out to show people that the water coming into the ocean here is coming all the way from those glaciers, and it's all this connected landscape. And so that's what I kind of mean in my art is I can tell zoomed in stories, I can zoom out and tell stories. There's so many different ways I can share these topics. And my strengths as an artist are going to be really different than someone else's. And so, one thing that we have built with the project that we're both really proud of and has become really powerful is creating a network of artists. And so, every field season, when we're out working and camping, we bring in different artists across who work across a variety of media. So, over time, that has built this really cool collective of creatives. And that's something that I lead now, but it's something that my dad was already doing and believed in before I even joined the project as well, if you want to speak to that, Dan.
We were providing an art residency for different artists uh, back starting in 2006. And so it was a good idea. I understood that I needed art to communicate the science better. I wasn't finding the artists that were able to do that. They were making nice art, but it wasn't really communicating the science. And so that's where Jill ended up coming in. And I think Jill sets the example and everybody else can see it. And now climate change is so much more visual that I think artists have a better grasp of what they're trying to show. But yeah, it's just fascinating to watch each person. And again, just like with journalists, we encourage them to tell the story they see and that resonates with them. We don't, try and tell them, paint this.
Yeah, exactly. So this is one painter who's Washington-based, Claire Giordano, who has come out with us in the field probably like 5 different years because she's local, and she knows all the spots we go. So she comes and joins and makes watercolor paintings. And I'll share some images of other artists. On the top left is a fiber artist, Emma. To the right of her, Julia, who does like scientific illustration, both digital and like sketching and painting. To the right of her is an oil painter, Claire Seaman. The bottom left is a printmaker, Cal Wakeler. Then another oil painter, Margaret Kingston. And then Rose McAdoo on the bottom right, who actually kind of creates cake art, is how I would best describe it, like kind of bakes creations that people can eat, the idea of bringing people together over food. And so she'd been making some stuff in the field. And so we have brought in more artists, and this is just a sample of some of them. But it's been really fun to connect with these folks to see what inspires them, what they create, to see these stories about the glaciers communicated across a wide range of media. And we have started to put together art shows. And so this is from a show called Shaped by Ice that I curated in the spring of 2025 in Seattle. And so these are some photos of different work from the show and the group of us and the artists in the top left. Most of us were able to make the opening. And so, again, the goal was to share stories about glaciers and why they're important, to show their beauty, to share stuff about climate change, in a region that has glaciers, but people's knowledge about them, of course, is going to be naturally so varied. And so it was really fun to get to do that. And it's something we'll continue to do. We have the next iteration of Shape by Eyes happening this coming week in more kind of central, like the kind of north part of the northeastern part of the North Cascades in a small community called Twisp. And so we're going to do our next iteration, slightly different artists, different art, and keeping sharing these stories. But this show was really emotional for me because, again, it was based on that network of artists that we've brought together over the years and just kind of showing like how strong that became and that yeah, it just kind of has inspired and touched a lot of lives and has really helped share the work in ways that my dad and I can't do alone. So I'm gonna leave this presentation and kind of end this discussion by just talking a little bit about kind of how our partnership between my dad and I works on this project and kind of wrap it up with that. So we kind of broke down, that we were really combining art and science and writing, and we publish papers and we make art, and we kind of do a wide range of things to share this. And it's been really fun to kind of officially work together as art director and science director because we both have different, skill sets, different interests, different like networks of people that we can like bring to the table. And I think mostly it's just like when we're in the field, we have such a great time. It's rare to get to, as an adult, spend like weeks of time, with your dad and kind of share that work and that passion together. We both, know the landscapes working in so well. And so it's fun to just like have all our special things, like aside from the work and the science, just to be camping together and observing the wildlife and the flowers and, having conversations and just, yeah, getting to bond in that way has been really special.